Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're breaking down one of the most surreal and highly anticipated moments in modern sports history. A moment that honestly ended in total shock. We're talking about Conor McGregor's return to the Octagon after a grueling 5-year hiatus following that catastrophic leg break back in 2021. The world was watching, the stadium was literally packed to the rafters, and everyone was waiting for the grand return of the Notorious. But what actually unfolded on Fight Night? Well, it was something absolutely nobody could have predicted. 69. That's the number you need to burn into your memory today, because that is exactly how many seconds this massive, multi-million-dollar, 5-year buildup lasted. Just 69 seconds. I mean, imagine the sheer anticipation of millions of fans tuning in, all culminating in a climax that was over in just over a single minute. And that brings us right to the central mystery of our explainer today. What on earth happened to the Notorious? How did the absolute biggest superstar in mixed martial arts history find himself sitting stunned on the canvas, while a packed, roaring stadium suddenly descended into this confused, eerie silence? Today, we're going to reconstruct this entire event piece by piece, using the data, the footage, and the aftermath to really understand how the mighty fell. Chapter 1. The 69-Second Mystery. So picture this. It's July 11th, 2026. We're inside the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas for the main event of UFC 329. The air is just incredibly thick with tension. Standing across the cage is the venerable Max Holloway, a former featherweight and BMF champion, who's looking to settle a 13-year-old score. The bell rings, and what unfolds is just bizarre. And this brilliantly illustrates the shock. Look at these numbers. Holloway was characteristically efficient, racking up 12 significant strikes in just over a minute. But look at McGregor's column, 0. For the first time in his entire UFC career, a man known for his devastating sniper-like precision landed absolutely 0 significant strikes. It's a haunting statistic for a former 2-division champion. Now, the data tells one story, but man, the visuals tell a completely different one. His iconic fluidity, it was just gone. Observers cageside noted this uncharacteristic nervousness and a desperate tension replacing that loose, bouncy karate stance we are also used to seeing. Even before the first bell rang, there was this deep unease about his demeanor in the cage, like he was looking for a rhythm that simply wasn't there. Chapter 2. Red Flags Before the Cage. If we actually rewind the clock just a few days before fight night, there were massive clues hiding in plain sight. Clues that heavily contrasted with the monumental stakes. And speaking of those stakes, get a load of this figure, $21.8 million. This wasn't just a fight, guys. This was a colossal financial engine. The event was expected to shatter the UFC's all-time gate record. With over $21.8 million on the line in ticket sales alone, the pressure to perform, or honestly, just to make the walk to the cage regardless of physical condition, was astronomical. Fans were tuning in for a miracle, and the financial machine demanded a main event. But, the narrative just wasn't adding up. Publicly, McGregor claimed he was sharp and ready, promising a return to the athlete that completely transformed the sport a decade ago. But the reality? Well, days before the walk, ominous viral footage emerged from the ceremonial weigh-ins. McGregor appeared visibly compromised. He actually stumbled, merely while taking off his shoes. It really begs the question, was the legend already physically broken before he even stepped foot into the arena? Chapter 3. The Ill-Fated Kick. Okay, let's fast forward back to the fight itself. We're at the 109 mark of the first round. McGregor is visibly tense, he's down on the scorecards early, and he's desperately searching for an opening. And then it all rapidly unravels in the blink of an eye. Let's break down the sequence exactly as it happened. Step 1. Out of nowhere, McGregor launches a highly acrobatic flying kick. Now, this is an incredibly high-risk move, especially considering he is in the exact same building where he shattered his tibia and fibula back in 2021. Step 2. As his foot hits the canvas, his right knee buckles violently. The pain is instantaneous. Step 3. He desperately tries to find his footing but slips to the canvas multiple times in quick succession. Referee Mike Beltran steps in and waves off the contest. The fight is over. Chapter 4. Suspicion and Rumors. Immediately, UFC President Dana White and the ringside doctors suspected a blown ACL, a tragic but totally understandable sports injury. But the digital world? They weren't buying this simple freak accident narrative. Dark rumors quickly consumed the internet. Now, what's really interesting about this sequence of events is the timeline. We start days before with the compromised weigh-in footage we just talked about. But then, look at this middle point. Minutes before the fighters made their walk, rumors swirled that a massive $900,000 bet was placed on a specific outcome for this exact fight. And then, right at the 109 mark, the fight abruptly ends. So when you look at that timeline, you really have to ask yourself, was this genuinely a freak in the moment accident? Or was McGregor's collapse in the cage the inevitable result of a severe pre-existing injury that he or his camp simply refused to acknowledge because of the $20+ million on the line? It's a question that completely changes how we view those final 69 seconds. Chapter 5. A Dark Aftermath. The second the fight was waved off, the atmosphere inside the T-Mobile Arena didn't feel like a standard UFC finish. It was a surreal, deeply grim scene that played out in front of millions watching around the globe. The visual was honestly shocking. You have Conor McGregor, the master of the post-fight microphone, the guy who literally built an empire on his supreme confidence, sitting on the canvas, a mask of total shock, being consoled by announcer Bruce Buffer. And instead of sympathetic cheers, a massive segment of his own audience brutally booed the fallen star. It was so intense that Max Holloway actually took the microphone himself to defend McGregor, calling him an absolute animal and demanding the fans show some respect. So the crucial point is really how this impacted McGregor mentally. In the hours following the devastating loss, there was an explosion on social media. McGregor took to X, formerly Twitter, and dropped these incredibly visceral descriptions of his state of mind. He didn't use his usual bravado. He described his reality as beyond dark and simply hell. He actually followed it up with this chilling quote: "The devil is literally staring at me right in front of my face." I mean, wow, that perfectly captures the deep psychological toll this event took on him. While he has defiantly vowed to return, the absolute silence from his inner camp regarding a formal retirement announcement, that speaks volumes. The man who usually commands the media narrative is suddenly shrouded in a very dark uncertainty. Chapter 6. End of an Era. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this isn't just about one bad night in Las Vegas. This is about the broader implications for the sport of mixed martial arts as a whole. This fight likely marks the definitive end of the McGregor era. To really understand the tragedy of this fall, you have to remember the monumental heights. This is the man who flatlined Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. He was the sport's very first simultaneous two-division champion. As Dana White himself acknowledged, sure, many paved the way, but McGregor remains the undisputed biggest superstar in UFC history. He changed the entire financial landscape of combat sports. But, as they say, time and damage remain undefeated. At 37 years old, he's now facing another major surgery. As he put it, another head gasket is blown. What we witnessed was the crumbling of an illusion. That invincible, notorious aura, built meticulously over a decade of dominance and unparalleled charisma, unraveled in just over a minute when aging and severe injury finally took their ultimate toll. The legend of McGregor in the Octagon is likely gone forever. But the mystery of that night, that still remains. So I leave you with this final thought to ponder. When you look at the missing significant strikes, the stumbled weigh-ins, the $900,000 bet, and the violent buckling of that knee, was this just a freak accident in a chaotic sport, or were we all watching a predestined, inevitable collapse? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. If you want to keep unraveling the most fascinating stories in sports and beyond, make sure you hit subscribe for more updates. See you next time.